All beings are unmanifest in the beginning, become manifest in the middle of their cycles, and return to the unmanifest condition in the end. What is there to grieve about? In other words, what can you do about it? Now, think of an oak. I like the example of an oak tree. An oak tree can be a huge tree, any tree, but we'll just say an oak tree. That oak tree is what? What is it? It's knowledge. What? It's knowledge? Yes, it's knowledge. Ishvara, the consciousness associated with Maya, created the idea of a tree. Had the knowledge of a tree and created the idea of a tree, and that idea is the seed for the physical tree. And if you look at a physical tree, an oak tree, it goes through certain cycles, doesn't it? Where does it come from? Where does that big tree come from? It comes from a seed. Well, where exactly in the seed is that big tree situated? Huh? You got a huge tree and it's coming out of a tiny little seed. Where in the seed is the tree?
In the middle.
But you can chop that thing up fine as anything. You can grind that seed up into tiny bits, into little teeny particles, and you can never find that tree hidden in there, can you? Because that tree is knowledge. That's an idea. It's knowledge that's hidden in the causal body of Ishvara, of the self, of consciousness operating Maya. The dogs, the cats, the air, the fire, the water, the earth, the bugs, the plants, the trees, you name it. Every single seed of this whole creation is stored here in the seed body of Ishvara. And it's only knowledge, pure knowledge. And it doesn't change. It's eternal. A tree is always a tree. It never becomes a dog or a cat. Ishvara's got a dog program, Ishvara's got a cat program, Ishvara's got a human program, and they're always the same. They just extrude those things out. And how does it work? It starts as a seed, and then slowly, when it enters into the time-space matrix down here, it's watered by circumstances, just like a regular tree is watered by heat and by the climate and the sunlight and the water. Those are factors in the environment that cause that tree to sprout. So all the thoughts, when the seed starts to sprout, they become manifest. They become known. The tree first exists in its potential form, and now it exists in its actual form. And then what happens? The oak tree grows up and becomes very, very big, and then what does it do? It dies, doesn't it? And it just merges back into the total matter. But what happens? The knowledge of the tree, is reborn in the seed again. In other words, the knowledge of the tree is always there, it's always potential, it becomes actual, and then it becomes potential. It's not coming from the past and going to the future, because there's no past and there's no future. Reality is non-dual. So nothing ever began then and ends here. Understand this. The concept of time that we have been conditioned to, materialism, is based upon our inference drawn from experience of our senses. and the belief that the body is actually real and that it is born and that it dies. So time doesn't begin and then end. Time is just a way of measuring the apparent manifestation of objects as they appear in what? Awareness. Understand? So this tree of samsara has its what? Its root in what? Ignorance of the self. And it manifests the thought, and we don't need to worry about the big picture, because what you see in the little picture and the big picture is exactly the same. In other words, the same process is happening on the macrocosmic level is happening on the microcosmic level in terms of every individual. So this process of creation, all these thoughts are being what? Those thoughts are ideas in your mind that sleep in your causal body, and they're time sensitive. The causal body is the way in which time is stored. So they're time sensitive, and they sprout according to karma. In other words, according to the actions that the doer has done previously, those actions produce a kind of momentum. That's called prarabdha karma. They produce a kind of momentum, and they're stored here, they sleep here, until the momentum from the previous action forces them to sprout, and then what? The thought appears in your mind. And then the next karmas that are fructify, that have become vasanas. Vasanas means the momentum from your past actions. Those vasanas, what? The next vasana sprouts, the old, and add sprouts as the other one dies. So things are dying in you and being born in you, dying, being born, dying, being born all the time. And there's no break. You could think of it as a circle. Time here in reality is actually cyclical if you want to visualize it. It never begins and it never ends. You can't do chicken and egg on time. Because when did it start? Well, there isn't any time, so it didn't start. Which was first? There wasn't any first. Creation, according to us, and we said this earlier in the Vivekachudamani, creation is what? Simultaneous, instantaneous. It's boom. It's an explosion. It's a projection. So there's no time. It just looks like there's time. When you look at it through the what? The filter of this apparent reality, it seems to be changing. So whatever you've done in the past is producing a seed. That seed is sprouting as the thought or the experience that you're having right now. See? See how it's cut? Huh? And what is it that what delivers these seeds? The macrocosm. In other words, the field in which you're acting interacts with the action that you do, leaves a vasana, causes what? The next experience to happen. That experience goes, and as this one experience is what? Dissolving, the next experience is coming up. And then this one's going down and this one's coming up. So what? You're having a constant experience all the time that's ever changing. And the source of that is what? Karma. The actions that you do here with ego and desire. If you're a jnani, you don't produce karma. So your causal body is empty of personal karma. In other words, you don't have any personal tendencies. You just become a vehicle for Ishvara. See? Because you don't have any desires or fears here that are forcing you to create karma. Understand? Jnanis don't produce karma. People who know who they are don't produce karma. Because they don't act what? From this platform. In other words, believing that getting what you want or avoiding what you don't want is going to make you happy. That's what's causing the vasana, which is producing the karma, which is producing the vasana, which is producing the karma, which is producing the vasana. Buddha called it the samsara chakra, this wheel of samsara that goes from desire to action, to desire to action, to desire to action. You see the frustration. You can see the frustration that's built in, because you're doing actions to get rid of the desires. But when you do the actions to get rid of the desires, what do? You get another desire. Not good. You'd want to do actions what? That would get rid of desires but wouldn't produce more desires, wouldn't you? But you can't do that as long as you take what? The doer and the apparent reality to be real. If you take it to be real, you'll keep acting here thinking that the results you're going to get will satisfy you. Won't you? Yeah. When you see that it's not real, you'll stop trying to get things here. You stop trying to chase stuff here in the sansara, and then your vasanas that are there will just burn out. The stuff that's left over from the past will burn out. And your mind will go shanti, peaceful. And it'll turn within. And what? See or experience or know the self. See what we're up against here. See the mechanism we're fighting against. This is why we're all so frustrated spiritually. Now there is a solution, and Krishna's going to explain the solution to Arjuna, obviously. There is a solution to this problem. But we got to understand the problem clearly before we talk about the solution. What it is that's creating these thoughts and these experiences. Thoughts mean just my experiences. Your experiences are just thoughts and feelings. There's no experience out there. As we pointed out in the beginning, all the objects that seem to be out there are actually in here, in my consciousness, in me. No objects are taking place outside. It seems like things are happening outside, but what? They're really experienced only in me, in my awareness, in my consciousness. And all of whatever happens is manufactured out of my consciousness. In other words, my interpretation of what happens is manufactured out of my consciousness, and that's influenced by either by knowledge or by my ignorance. If I'm knowledge, if I know the truth, I'll interpret it one way, or I won't bother to interpret it. Or if I'm ignorant, I'll interpret it according to my ignorance, which will keep me stuck in this whole chakra here. This whole going round and round and round. This is why life is so boring. Yeah, and this is why in our cultures particularly, what's the number one most powerful institution in our cultures? Entertainment. Entertainment. My God, people are walking around with these funny little things, fiddling, all day long. They've either got something here or they're poking at some little device, trying to entertain themselves. Now, why do we? You know. Why is that? That's because we're bored. That's why. If you're a happy person, you don't need to be entertained. Yourself is so entertaining. Your foolish little ego is so entertaining, you'll be having a laugh all day long. It's such a silly thing to watch yourself carrying on in this world. But we're just bored to death. Why? Because what? We're nothing but automatons. We're robots. Our fears and desires have turned us into these little robots. And we just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again.